Filled with artistically folded gourmet cold meats and fresh salad ingredients, a freshly filled roll is hard to resist. They look great, taste amazing, and make a perfect lunch or picnic option. In today's video, I'm going to show you my top 3 tips to master the art of making the perfect filled roll. This video completes my trio of filled sandwich videos: cocktail sandwiches, fresh wraps, and filled rolls. I used to make hundreds of all of these for conferences and events. They're not tricky, but they look amazing, and I want to show you how to do it so you can do it too. Here's the things we need for our filled rolls today. A selection of fresh bread rolls. Here's some ciabatta buns, some homemade bagels, and pretzel buns. I've got a piping bag of mayonnaise. Here's our salad ingredients. Some lettuce leaves in a variety of colours and textures, avocado, cucumber, tomato, and boiled eggs. Here's some green salad garnishes, cheese, and our meat selection: roast beef, salami, and ham. And here we have a capsicum and apricot chutney and a beetroot relish. The first thing we need to do is prepare our salad ingredients. I'll start by thinly slicing the cucumber. You could do this with a mandolin like the one I have here. It's so quick, and each piece of cucumber is cut exactly the same thickness. If you don't have a mandolin, you can easily just cut it by hand. You might not get it all perfect, but hey, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. I like to pile them up into little piles, ready to be used. Then we can thinly slice the avocado. These are delicious added to a freshly filled roll, but are also a great option for vegetarian rolls. Looks like this is going to be a good one. It's hard to tell when you cut avocados open whether they're going to be nice and green and ripe or not. And onto the boiled eggs. First we need to mash them nice and small. Then we need to add a good blob of mayo and salt and mix it together. When we used to mash lots of trays of eggs, I'm talking a few hundred eggs, we'd use a clean deep fryer basket and push the boiled eggs through the wire. We found it was a quick way of mashing a whole lot of eggs at once. It sure beats using a fork. Now I'll pop it into a piping bag ready to use. The piping bag makes it so much easier to add to the rolls than if we were using a knife. Lastly, we'll cut the tomatoes. I love this little knife for taking out the tomato core. You just stick in the tip and spin it around, and out pops a little cone-shaped core. If you want to know more about the knives I use in my kitchen, I'll leave a link to a video about that in the description below. Now we can cut the tomato in half and thinly slice it. I like doing it like this, but you could cut full circles too if you wanted to. Next we need to cut our rolls, but how can we do this so they look good but are still easy to fill? Here's tip number 1. Artistic cutting to create intrigue. It really depends on the size of the roll as to what we can do with it. These ciabatta buns are square and fairly large, so we can cut them in half on the diagonal, creating 2 triangular shaped rolls. Then put the cut side down and cut straight down from the pointy top, but not quite all the way through. This gives us a surface to fill. A good bread knife or serrated paring knife does a great job of this. Don't you think this is so much more creative than cutting the roll in half? These bagels are a nice petite size, so we can just cut into them through the side, but don't go all the way through. Leave a small bit on the end to keep it attached. You could of course use the bigger bagels. It really depends on who you're making these for, whether you want bigger portions or a variety of big and small portions. And for the pretzel buns, I'll cut diagonally into the top so we can see the nice top and rock salt. By cutting in diagonally, our creative filling efforts will look more appealing than if we cut straight down or horizontally. Once they're all cut, we can line them up on the bench ready to fill. Working with a mini production line like this really makes filling these so much easier, especially when you're doing quite a few. It also makes it easy to create a variety in the fillings by filling one line with one filling and another with something different. You'll end up with different buns filled with different ingredients, and they'll all look and taste delicious. Tip number 2, using a piping bag. It feels like I'm always talking about piping bags, but I wonder if you've used them like this before. Using a piping bag in this situation is so much cleaner and more efficient than trying to spread the mayonnaise with a knife. So here I can slightly open the roll, pipe in a bit of mayo, and move on to the next one. Isn't it so quick and easy? You can just work your way down the line until you have some mayo in every roll. Mustard, aioli, or any sandwich spread would work well as your base here. Since the top and the bottom of the roll is still connected at one end, you won't have to try and keep the tops and bottoms together, and you're able to get the mayo right into the furthest end because the pointy tip of the piping bag can reach where a knife would struggle. Now we can add our lettuce leaves. As I mentioned before, this is where we can easily create variety by alternating the red and green leaves, or by using a combination of both colours in each roll. Stick a leaf or two into each roll with some sticking out a little. This helps it look full and appealing. Then we can add our cucumber, putting a few pieces in each roll. You're kind of making these rolls sideways and layering up the fillings. This helps them look fuller and shows off the colour variety of the different fillings. This is a bit confusing, but for all of these base ingredients that go on every roll, I'm working my way from left to right and from top to bottom, so every roll gets some. Then when I add the main filling, I'll add one filling to each column, and then I'll add the condiments in rows. This will mean every roll will have a different combination of main filling and condiment. Then work your way along with the tomatoes. Tomatoes are such a delicious addition to any filled roll. A lot of people avoid using them because they don't want soggy rolls. But don't put them directly next to the bread and you'll be fine. Make sure you have something in between like lettuce to act as a barrier between the tomato and the bread. I don't have my top barrier here yet, but I'll add it soon. Before we get into our last tip, I'd like to introduce myself in case you're new here. I'm Taryn. Helping you make your cooking enjoyable, taste delicious and look amazing is what this channel is all about. I love playing with food and learning and sharing what I've learnt with you. If this sounds like something you're into, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Let's get on to tip number 3, folding and fanning the main filling. So now I'm going to add the main filling in columns, starting with the avocado for our vegetarian option and then working our way along with the meats. Fanning out the avocado adds to the visual appeal of these rolls and makes them look fuller. And now for our meat selection. This is where you can get really creative and let your artistic side loose. Folding the meat creates a lot of texture and intrigue and looks great slipped into a bread roll. You can fold the ham in half and then roll it into a cone shape and put 1 or 2 of these into a roll. You really don't want the meat cut too thick for this because then you won't be able to fold it very easily. Try to avoid having just one flat piece of meat. It's a bit boring and it doesn't create much intrigue. The salami rings are quite big, so we can either fold a few pieces in half and fan them a little, or roll them like the ham. There aren't any rules, just let your creativity shine. This roast beef is fairly thick, so minimal folding is all we can do. Actually, the unevenness in the folding is what helps to make it visually appealing. We can add some cheese slices to some of the rolls at random. You could add a few different types of cheese or pickles, or julienne carrots would be delicious too. Adding the cheese at random helps to create more variety. Doesn't this selection look so colourful already? To add some extra flavour and colour, we can add the relish, chutney and egg. I'm going to do a row of each. Try and choose a chutney with complementary flavours and contrasting colours to your filling. I love the little red specks through the capsicum and apricot chutney. Don't you think this chutney is vibrant and adds to the overall look of the roll? Beetroot always adds a welcome addition of a deep red colour. If you want to see how to make this exact beetroot relish, I'll leave a link to a video in the description below where I show you how to make it and use it. The egg is a nice light colour which goes well with the darker meats. It's also a nice protein to add to the vegetarian options. And lastly, we can garnish with some snow pea shoots or salad sprouts to finish them off. These are not necessary, but I do think garnishing is what really completes these rolls. You don't need to put some on every roll. Once they're plated, they will look fantastic. Let's put these onto a nice big presentation board ready to serve. When plating them on the board, I'm thinking about mixing up the different types and heights of rolls. I also want the fillings pointing to the outside of the board or plate. This helps to make them look inviting and appealing. These are best made and eaten on the same day. Although if you wrap them well in plastic wrap and refrigerate them, they'd still be fine to eat the following day. Well, what do you think? Is there an art to filling a bread roll? If you enjoy artistically presented lunch ideas, make sure you check out the ultimate option, Open Danish Sandwiches. Here's a video that'll give you lots of ideas and inspiration. See you over there. Happy filled rolling.